Awakening the beast. The hum of the alien medical device filled the sterile chamber as it whirred to life. In an instant, a 10-inch needle plunged through the eye socket of the frozen human soldier, reaching deep into his brain. The man's eyes snapped open, and his fists clenched with a loud crack, startling the alien scientists around him. Fear washed over the Zorgan crew, who, just minutes earlier, had been celebrating their discovery. The cryopod they found drifting through space was a relic from a bygone era, containing a perfectly preserved Terran super soldier. Commander Zark danced with glee, envisioning the accolades and promotions that would follow the successful revival of such a specimen. But his celebration was short-lived as the pod's life support systems began to fail. "Sir, the human's life support is critical. We must revive him now, or he'll perish," Lieutenant Zorg pointed out, his voice trembling with urgency. Commander Zark hesitated, knowing the risks, but his ambition clouded his judgment. "Do it now," he demanded. "I want that human alive." The procedure was hastily executed, and the human soldier, Captain John Steele, was brought back from the brink of death. As his senses returned, John found himself restrained on a cold metal table, surrounded by grotesque alien creatures with gray, slimy skin and rows of sharp fangs. The leader of the aliens stepped forward, introducing himself with a sinister smile. "I am Commander Zark of the Zorgan Empire. You, human, will tell us everything about your planet's defenses." John's mind raced as realization dawned on him. He had been in cryostasis for an unknown amount of time, and Earth was now at war with these aliens. Despite the pain and confusion, he knew one thing for sure: he would never betray his people. "I don't know what you're talking about," he growled. "I'm just a soldier. I don't have any special knowledge." Zark's smile faded, replaced by a cold, calculating look. "We shall see," he said, signaling his subordinates to prepare the torture devices. Electrodes were attached to John's head and chest, sending surges of electricity through his body. The agony was unbearable, but he gritted his teeth and endured it, refusing to give the aliens any satisfaction. His resolve was ironclad. He would not break under their cruel methods. Hours passed, and John's body was racked with pain, but his spirit remained unbroken. The Zorgan scientists, frustrated by their inability to extract any useful information, suggested a new approach. "Commander, we have an experimental mind control device. It might be able to override the human's will," suggested Zorg, the lead scientist. Zark's eyes gleamed with interest. "Implant it," he ordered. John's fear spiked as the alien anesthetic dulled his senses. The procedure was excruciating, every slice of the laser scalpel and every prod of the instruments sending waves of pain through his body. But deep within his mind, a neural inhibitor, a safeguard installed during his enhancement process, activated, shielding him from the worst effects of the mind control device. He pretended to be compliant, allowing the aliens to believe they had succeeded in breaking him. Inside, he plotted his escape, memorizing the layout of the ship and assessing his captor's weaknesses. His opportunity came when the guards, distracted by a flashing control panel, let their guard down. John struck swiftly, disarming and disabling them with the alien sidearm he had acquired. As alarms blared and the ship's corridors were bathed in red light, John moved with the precision and ruthlessness of a seasoned warrior. His enhanced senses and strength gave him an edge over the Zorgan soldiers, who fell before him one by one. In the chaos, Lieutenant Zorg approached John, hands raised in surrender. "I want to help you escape," he said, his voice earnest. John's eyes narrowed in suspicion. "Why betray your own kind?" "Zark's cruelty will lead us to ruin. I cannot stand by and watch," Zorg replied, his disgust evident. Reluctantly, John accepted the alien's help. Together, they navigated the ship's labyrinthine corridors, evading patrols and securing a path to an escape pod. John's mind raced with thoughts of home, of Earth, and of the war that awaited him. He knew the battle was far from over, but as long as he drew breath, He would fight to protect his planet and his people. The escape. John's muscles ached as he sprinted through the dimly lit corridors of the Zorgan ship. The alien sidearm in his grip felt foreign, but he wielded it with deadly precision. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, striking down any Zorgan soldier who dared cross his path. The ship's alarms blared incessantly, casting everything in a pulsing red light. Zorg led the way, his knowledge of the ship's layout proving invaluable. "This way," he urged, pointing towards a narrow passage that branched off from the main corridor. "The escape pods are through here." John followed, his mind racing with thoughts of freedom and the looming war on Earth. The Zorgan ship was a maze of twisting corridors and dead ends, but Zorg navigated it with ease. They encountered sporadic resistance, but John's enhanced reflexes and combat skills ensured they made quick work of any opposition. As they rounded a corner, John spotted the escape pods. They were sleek, egg-shaped vessels designed for emergency evacuations. "There," Zorg said, motioning towards one of the pods. "Get in. I'll launch it." John hesitated, eyeing the alien with suspicion. "Why are you helping me?" Zorg's expression was a mix of guilt and determination. "Zark's methods are monstrous. I can't stand by and watch him destroy everything. Besides, if you escape, maybe you can help bring an end to this war." John nodded, accepting the explanation for now. He climbed into the escape pod, securing himself in the cramped seat. Zorg worked the controls, his fingers moving swiftly over the holographic interface. The pod's hatch sealed with a hiss, and John felt a surge of relief as the small vessel detached from the Zorgan ship. "Good luck, human," Zorg said, his voice crackling through the pod's communication system. "Make them pay." With a final nod, John activated the pod's thrusters. The vessel shuddered as it propelled away from the Zorgan ship, hurtling through the void of space. John's heart pounded in his chest, a mix of adrenaline and determination fueling his resolve. As the pod sped towards the nearest star system, John reviewed the data he had gathered. The Zorgan ship's layout, the number of soldiers, and the capabilities of their weapons, all of it was etched into his memory. He knew he would need every scrap of information if he hoped to mount a successful resistance against the Zorgan Empire. The pod's navigation system indicated a nearby planet with a breathable atmosphere and a human settlement. John set a course, his mind already working on a plan. He would need allies, weapons, and a way to communicate with Earth's military forces. The battle was far from over, but John Steele was ready to fight. The escape pod entered the planet's atmosphere, the heat of re-entry causing the hull to glow red-hot. John braced himself as the pod streaked through the sky, a blazing comet descending towards the surface. The vessel shuddered violently, the friction and turbulence almost overwhelming. Finally, with a bone-jarring impact, the pod crashed into the ground. John's vision blurred, and his ears rang from the force of the landing. He took a moment to steady himself before unbuckling the restraints and forcing the hatch open. The planet's surface was rugged and desolate, with jagged rocks and sparse vegetation. In the distance, he could see a settlement, its structures silhouetted against the setting sun. John climbed out of the pod, his muscles protesting with every movement. He knew he had to move quickly. The Zorgan would be searching for him soon. With grim determination, John set off towards the settlement. He needed to find a way to contact Earth and warn them of the Zorgan threat. His every step was a reminder of the mission that lay ahead. He would fight for his people, for his planet, and for the future of humanity. Allies in the shadows. John's trek across the desolate terrain was arduous. The alien sun cast long shadows as it dipped below the horizon, painting the landscape in hues of orange and red. He moved swiftly, driven by the urgency of his mission. Every step brought him closer to the settlement, where he hoped to find allies and resources. As he approached the outskirts of the settlement, John took note of its defensive structures. High walls surrounded the cluster of buildings, with guard towers strategically placed at intervals. It was a small but well-fortified community, a beacon of human resilience in an alien world. John approached cautiously, his eyes scanning for any signs of Zorgan presence. He needed to make contact with the settlers without drawing attention. As he neared the gate, a voice called out from the shadows. "Hold it right there." A figure stepped into the light, a rifle aimed at John's chest. "Who are you, and what do you want?" John raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "My name is Captain John Steele. I need to speak with your leader. It's urgent." The guard narrowed his eyes, scrutinizing John for a moment before lowering his weapon. "Follow me," he said gruffly. "But try anything funny, and you'll regret it." John nodded, grateful for the chance to explain himself. He followed the guard through the gate and into the settlement. The buildings were a mix of prefabricated structures and makeshift shelters, reflecting the settlers' resourcefulness and determination. People moved about, their faces etched with lines of hardship and resolve. The guard led John to a central building, larger and more fortified than the others. Inside, he was greeted by a stern-looking woman with a commanding presence. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, studied him with an intensity that made him uneasy. "I'm Lieutenant Kara Mason," she said, her voice steady and authoritative. "I run things around here. Now, tell me why I shouldn't throw you back out into the wasteland." John took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Lieutenant Mason, I'm a Terran super soldier. I was captured by the Zorgan and managed to escape. They're planning an attack on Earth, and I need to get back to warn our people." Mason's expression softened slightly, but her eyes remained wary. "A super soldier, huh? We haven't seen one of your kind in a long time. What proof do you have?" John recounted his ordeal, describing the Zorgan ship and the procedures they performed on him. He detailed his escape and the critical information he had gathered. Mason listened intently, her skepticism gradually giving way to concern. "If what you're saying is true," she said, "then we're all in grave danger. But why come here? What do you need from us?" "I need a way to contact Earth," John replied. "A secure communication channel. And I'll need weapons and supplies to fend off the Zorgan when they come looking for me." Mason nodded slowly. "We have a comms array, but it's heavily guarded. The Zorgan have been trying to shut us down for months. We'll help you, but you'll need to earn our trust first." John met her gaze, determination burning in his eyes. "Tell me what I need to do." Mason outlined a plan. The settlement was under constant threat from Zorgan patrols, and they needed someone to take out a nearby enemy outpost that had been harassing their supply lines. If John could eliminate the threat, it would prove his loyalty and give the settlers the breathing room they needed to support him. Armed with the alien sidearm and a few supplies, John set out on his mission. The Zorgan outpost was nestled in a rocky canyon, its defenses formidable, but not insurmountable. He approached under the cover of darkness, his enhanced senses picking out the sentries and patrol patterns. With calculated precision, John disabled the perimeter defenses, taking out the guards one by one. He moved like a shadow, silent and deadly, until he reached the heart of the outpost. There, he planted explosives on key structures and set a timer. As he slipped away, the explosions rocked the canyon, sending plumes of smoke and debris into the air. The Zorgan outpost was crippled, its threat to the settlement neutralized. John made his way back to the settlers, his mission accomplished. Lieutenant Mason greeted him with a nod of approval. "You've proven yourself, Steele. We'll help you contact Earth. But know this, we're in this fight together. If the Zorgan are coming, we'll stand with you." John felt a surge of gratitude and determination. He had found allies in this desolate world, and together they would fight to protect their home. The battle was far from over, but with the settlers by his side, he felt a renewed sense of hope. As they prepared the comms array, John knew that every second counted. The Zorgan threat loomed large, but he was ready to face it head-on. For Earth, for humanity, and for the future, he would fight with everything he had. A message to Earth. The comms array hummed with a low, steady drone as Lieutenant Mason and her team worked to activate it. The structure, an amalgamation of human and alien technology, towered above the settlement, its antennae reaching for the sky. John stood nearby, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of Zorgon patrols. "Almost there," Mason said, her fingers dancing over the control panel. "Just need to bypass a few more security protocols. The Zorgon have been trying to jam our signals, but we'll get through." John nodded, appreciating the settlers' resilience and technical expertise. These were people who had faced the Zorgon's wrath and survived, and now they were risking everything to help him send a warning to Earth. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on him, but he knew that this message could turn the tide of the war. Finally, the array came to life with a series of beeps and flashes. Mason stepped back, a look of satisfaction on her face. "It's ready. You've got a clear channel. Make it count." John approached the console, his heart pounding in his chest. He took a deep breath, then activated the communication link. The screen flickered, and he saw the familiar insignia of the Terran Defense Force. Moments later, a voice crackled through the speaker. "This is Earth Command. Identify yourself and state your purpose." "This is Captain John Steele, ID 45789 Alpha of the Terran Super Soldier Program. I have critical information regarding the Zorgon threat. I need to speak with General Harrison immediately." There was a brief pause, then the voice returned, more urgent. "Stand by, Captain Steele. Patching you through now." The screen shifted, and the stern face of General Harrison appeared. His eyes widened in surprise as he recognized John. "Steele, we thought you were dead. What's your status?" "General, I've been in cryostasis for an unknown period. I was captured by the Zorgon, but managed to escape. They're planning a major assault on Earth, and they've developed new mind control technology. We need to prepare our defenses and strike back before it's too late." Harrison's expression hardened as he absorbed the information. "Understood. We'll mobilize our forces and start coordinating with our allies. Your intel is invaluable, Steele. We're sending a retrieval team to your location. Hold tight and stay safe." "Roger that, General." Steele out. John ended the transmission, a sense of relief washing over him. He turned to Mason, gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you. You've given us a fighting chance." Mason smiled, but her expression quickly turned serious. "We're not out of the woods yet. The Zorgon will be looking for you, and they won't stop until they find this settlement. We need to prepare for their retaliation." John nodded. "Agreed. Let's fortify our defenses and get everyone ready. We're in this together." The Zorgon onslaught. The settlers moved with a sense of urgency, reinforcing barricades, setting up traps, and distributing weapons. John worked alongside them, sharing his combat expertise and helping to strategize the defense. The atmosphere was tense but determined. Everyone knew what was at stake. As night fell, the settlement was bathed in the eerie glow of floodlights. John stood atop one of the guard towers, scanning the horizon through a pair of binoculars. The quiet was unsettling, a stark contrast to the chaos that would soon erupt. Suddenly, a distant rumble reached his ears, growing louder with each passing second. John's heart raced as he spotted the telltale lights of Zorgon hovercrafts approaching. He raised his hand, signaling the alarm. "They're coming," he shouted. "Everyone to your positions." The settlers sprang into action, taking up defensive positions along the walls and in the towers. John gripped his alien sidearm, his enhanced senses sharpening as the Zorgon forces closed in. The first wave of hovercrafts came into view, their sleek, metallic forms glinting in the floodlights. Plasma bolts lit up the night as the Zorgon opened fire. The settlement's defenses responded in kind, a barrage of gunfire and energy blasts meeting the enemy onslaught. John moved with precision, taking out Zorgon soldiers with deadly accuracy. The battle was fierce, the air thick with the sounds of explosions and screams. Despite their superior numbers, the Zorgon were met with fierce resistance. The settlers fought with everything they had, their determination and resilience shining through. John's presence bolstered their morale, his combat prowess inspiring them to hold the line. As the battle raged on, John spotted a Zorgan commander coordinating the attack from a hovercraft. He knew that taking out the commander could turn the tide in their favor. With a surge of adrenaline, he leaped from the tower, rolling to absorb the impact as he hit the ground. John sprinted towards the hovercraft, ducking and weaving through the chaos. He reached the vehicle, using the element of surprise to his advantage. He dispatched the guards with swift, lethal strikes, then turned his attention to the commander. The Zorgan commander, a hulking figure with menacing eyes, snarled as he faced John. "You cannot stop us, human. Your planet will fall." John's response was a swift kick to the commander's midsection, followed by a series of punches that left the alien reeling. "Not if I have anything to say about it," he growled. With a final, decisive blow, John incapacitated the commander. He grabbed the hovercraft's communication device, sending a jamming signal to disrupt the Zorgan coordination. The enemy forces faltered, their attacks becoming disorganized and chaotic. Seizing the opportunity, the settlers pressed their advantage. They pushed the Zorgan back, their combined efforts overwhelming the invaders. One by one, the Zorgan forces retreated, their hovercrafts disappearing into the night. A cheer erupted from the settlers as the last of the Zorgan fled. John stood amidst the wreckage, his body aching, but his spirit unbroken. He had bought them time, but he knew the war was far from over. Lieutenant Mason approached, her face streaked with dirt and sweat. "We did it," she said, her voice a mix of exhaustion and triumph. John nodded, a sense of camaraderie filling his heart. "We did. But we need to stay vigilant. The Zorgan will be back, and we have to be ready." Mason placed a hand on his shoulder, her grip firm. "With you leading the charge, Steele, we'll be ready for anything." As dawn broke over the horizon, the settlement began to rebuild, their spirits unbroken despite the destruction. John knew that this was just the beginning of their fight, but with allies like these, he felt a renewed sense of hope. Together, they would stand against the Zorgan threat and protect their home. The road ahead. In the days that followed, the settlers worked tirelessly to repair the damage and reinforce their defenses. John spent his time training the settlers, sharing advanced combat techniques and strategies. He also took the opportunity to learn from them, gaining insight into their resourcefulness and adaptability. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and red, John and Lieutenant Mason stood atop the guard tower, surveying the horizon. The bond between them had grown strong, forged in the crucible of battle. "Earth Command's retrieval team should be here soon," Mason said, her eyes fixed on the sky. "Are you ready to go back?" John nodded, though a part of him felt reluctant to leave. "I am. But I'll miss this place. You've all shown incredible bravery and resilience. I won't forget it." Mason smiled, her expression warm. "We couldn't have done it without you. You gave us hope when we needed it most." As they spoke, a flash of light caught their attention. John raised his binoculars, spotting the sleek silhouette of a Terran dropship descending towards the settlement. Relief washed over him. Help had arrived. The dropship touched down in the center of the settlement, its ramp lowering to reveal a squad of Terran soldiers in full combat gear. John and Mason descended from the tower, meeting the soldiers as they disembarked. The squad leader, a grizzled veteran with a no-nonsense demeanor, saluted John. "Captain Steele, we're here to bring you home. General Harrison sends his regards." John returned the salute. "Good to see you, Sergeant. We've got a lot to discuss." As the settlers gathered around, John introduced them to the Terran soldiers. The two groups exchanged stories and information, building a sense of unity and mutual respect. The settlers shared their experiences of surviving on this harsh planet, while the soldiers provided updates on the war effort back on Earth. That night, the settlement held a celebration. A makeshift feast was prepared, and for the first time in a long while, there was laughter and joy. John felt a sense of belonging, knowing that he had made a difference in these people's lives. Before the retrieval team departed the next morning, John addressed the settlers. "You are the front line in this war. Your courage and determination have shown that we can stand against the Zorgon. Keep fighting and know that Earth is with you." Lieutenant Mason stepped forward, shaking his hand firmly. "Thank you, John, for everything. We'll keep the fight going here. You just make sure Earth is ready for them." With a final nod, John boarded the dropship. As it lifted off, he looked out over the settlement, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. He knew that this was not the end, but a new beginning. The war with the Zorgon was far from over, but he was ready to face it head-on. As the dropship soared into the sky, heading back to Earth, John Steele felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had found allies in the unlikeliest of places, and together they would fight to protect their world from the Zorgon threat. The road ahead was fraught with danger, but he was prepared for whatever came next. For Earth, for humanity, and for the future, John Steele would fight with unwavering resolve. Return to Earth. The dropship cruised through the atmosphere, leaving the settlement and the hostile planet behind. John Steele sat in the passenger bay, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The soldiers around him were silent, their faces reflecting the grim determination that came with knowing they were returning to a world at war. As the dropship entered the vast expanse of space, John felt a familiar sense of calm wash over him. The stars outside the viewport were a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the small part they played in it. Yet their role was crucial. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. The journey back to Earth was uneventful, the dropship making a series of jumps through hyperspace. John used the time to review the data he had gathered on the Zorgon, hoping to find any additional insights that could aid in their defense. The new mind control technology was particularly concerning. Understanding and countering it would be key to their survival. Finally, the blue-green orb of Earth came into view. John's heart swelled with a mix of relief and determination. It had been a long time since he had seen his home, and now, more than ever, he was ready to defend it. The dropship descended towards a Terran Defense Force base, its sleek form gliding through the atmosphere with precision. As they touched down, the ramp lowered, and John stepped out, greeted by a squad of soldiers and General Harrison himself. "Welcome back, Captain Steele," Harrison said, his voice carrying a note of respect. "We've been eagerly awaiting your return." John saluted. "Thank you, General. We have a lot to discuss." Strategic planning. Inside the command center, John briefed the top brass on his experiences and the intelligence he had gathered. The room was filled with high-ranking officers, scientists, and strategists, all listening intently to his every word. "The Zorgon have developed mind control technology," John explained, displaying holographic images of the devices he had encountered. "They're using it to turn humans into unwilling soldiers. We need to find a way to counteract it." The scientists in the room exchanged concerned glances. Dr. Ilar Nguyen, a leading expert in neural technology, spoke up. "We've been working on neural disruptors that could potentially block the signals used by the Zorgon devices. With your data, we might be able to refine them." General Harrison nodded. "Make it your top priority, Dr. Nguyen. We need a defense against this threat as soon as possible." John continued, outlining the tactics and strategies he had observed the Zorgon using. "They rely heavily on overwhelming force and psychological warfare. We need to bolster our defenses and improve our communication networks to resist their jamming attempts." The meeting lasted for hours, with plans being drafted and resources allocated. John felt a renewed sense of purpose as he saw the collective will of humanity gearing up for the fight. They were ready to stand against the Zorgon. The first skirmish. The following weeks were a blur of activity. John worked closely with the scientists and engineers, testing and refining the neural disruptors. The soldiers underwent intensive training, preparing for the inevitable confrontation with the Zorgon. One morning, as John was overseeing a training exercise, the base's alarms blared to life. Incoming Zorgan ships detected. All personnel to battle stations. John sprinted to the command center, his enhanced senses processing the flood of information on the tactical displays. The Zorgan scout fleet had entered the solar system, heading straight for Earth. General Harrison's voice was calm but urgent. All units, prepare for engagement. We can't let them reach the planet. The battle that ensued was fierce and chaotic. Terran forces, equipped with the newly developed neural disruptors, met the Zorgan head-on in the asteroid belt. John led a squad of elite soldiers, his combat instincts and superhuman abilities giving them an edge. The disruptors proved effective, neutralizing the Zorgan mind control signals and allowing the human soldiers to fight without fear of being turned. John's team boarded a Zorgan ship, taking the fight directly to the enemy. The corridors of the alien vessel were filled with the sounds of gunfire and explosions as they pushed towards the command center. John confronted a Zorgan officer, their eyes locking in a battle of wills. "You won't take this planet," John growled, his fists connecting with brutal force. The Zorgan fought back with savage intensity, but John's determination and training prevailed. With a final strike, he incapacitated the officer and disabled the ship's command systems. The victory was hard-won, but it sent a clear message. Earth was ready to defend itself. The Zorgan scout fleet retreated, their losses too great to continue the assault. Cheers erupted from the Terran forces as the last of the enemy ships vanished into the void, rallying the Allies. In the aftermath of the battle, John and the Terran leadership knew they needed more than just defensive measures. They needed allies. The Zorgan threat was not just a human problem. It was a galactic one. General Harrison called a meeting with representatives from various allied species. The room was a mix of different cultures and technologies, all united by a common goal. "We need to form a united front against the Zorgan," Harrison began. "Their threat extends beyond Earth, and if we don't stand together, we'll all fall separately." Ambassador Kara of the Terrene, a reptilian species known for their advanced technology, nodded in agreement. "The Zorgan have attacked our colonies as well. We are ready to join forces." Other representatives voiced their support, each bringing their unique strengths to the alliance. Plans were made for joint operations, resource sharing, and technological exchanges. The United Front was not just a show of strength, but a beacon of hope for all the species involved. John felt a surge of pride as he saw the diverse group come together. This was what he had been fighting for, a future where different species could stand together against a common enemy. The final stand. Months passed as the Alliance fortified their defenses and prepared for the inevitable Zorgan retaliation. John continued to train and lead, his resolve unshaken. The neural disruptors had been further refined, and new weapons and ships were developed through the collaborative efforts of the allied species. The day came when the Zorgan launched their full-scale invasion. It was a massive fleet, dwarfing anything they had encountered before. The skies over Earth were filled with the ominous shapes of Zorgan warships, and the ground shook as their troops landed. The Allied forces were ready. On the ground, in the air, and in space, they met the Zorgan with a ferocity born of desperation and hope. John led a strike team in a daring assault on the Zorgan flagship, their objective clear: take out the command and control center. The battle inside the flagship was intense. John and his team fought through waves of Zorgan soldiers, their progress slow but steady. Every corridor was a battleground, every room a fortress to be taken. John's enhanced abilities and combat experience were pushed to their limits. Finally, they'd reached the command center. The Zorgan High Commander, a towering figure of menace and power, awaited them. "You are persistent, human," the commander hissed. "But this ends now." John squared off against the commander, the fate of Earth and the Alliance resting on his shoulders. The fight was brutal, each blow exchanged with deadly intent. John's determination and training gave him the edge, but the commander's strength and cunning were formidable. With a final, desperate effort, John delivered a crippling blow to the commander. The Zorgan staggered, and John seized the opportunity to disable the command systems. The flagship's control over the invading forces faltered, and the tide of the battle began to turn. Outside, the Allied forces rallied, pushing the Zorgan back. The disruption in their command structure caused chaos among the Zorgan ranks, and the united front of the Alliance proved too much for them to overcome. One by one, the Zorgan ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. Epilogue. A new dawn. The victory was not without its cost. Many lives were lost, and the scars of the battle would remain for years to come. But Earth and its allies had stood firm, proving that unity and determination could overcome even the most formidable of foes. John Steele stood on the balcony of the Terran Defense Force headquarters, looking out over the recovering city below. The sky was clear, the threat of the Zorgan invasion a memory. He knew that the war was not truly over. The Zorgan were still out there, and vigilance would be necessary. But for now, there was peace and a chance to rebuild. General Harrison approached, a look of satisfaction on his face. "You did it, Steele. We did it." John nodded, a sense of fulfillment washing over him. "It was a team effort, General. We all had a part to play." Harrison smiled. "Indeed, and now we can focus on building a better future, together." As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the city, John felt a renewed sense of hope. The road ahead would be challenging, but with allies by their side and the strength of their resolve, they would face it head-on. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, a reminder of the vast universe they were a part of. John Steele, once a lone super soldier, had found his place in it, and he knew that as long as they stood together, they could face any challenge that came their way.